This aircraft, there are 6 emergency exits.
Hello, everybody. This is Ron, your captain speaking. We are currently 30,000 feet in the air, and we haven't even left the airport. We just lit the joint. Just kidding, a little pilot humor there. We like to have fun. Our destination today is Casablanca, Morocco. So everyone, sit back, fasten your seatbelts, and prepare for takeoff. We will be arriving in 6 hours.
What's going on, 7-Footers crew? It's your girl Jenna and Jarod here. Guys, we are knee deep in the playoff first round madness, and we are here to chat all things, well, that. So, how we doing, Jarod?
Doing great, man. Loving the first few games of the first round. Excited for tonight. I mean, this playoffs is exciting, and I think we talked about this off show. What's exciting is we literally have no idea who is doing anything, right? We're like, who can get to the finals? It could be literally 8 different teams. I don't know.
Honestly, yeah, we were just talking about this. I mean, there's no concrete prediction that I can really make, and I call myself, an expert in this field, but it's so hard. There's so many teams that are good, and there are teams that you think to name, like right off the bat, and then you're like, wait, but this team is so
right.
good. So we need to jump into it because we have games tipping off tonight as we record this, and it's not stopping. We're officially in playoff mode, as they say in the big leagues. So let's talk about this. Now, we're recording this on May 25th, so this will be a slate of tonight's games. So let's, first up, your Brooklyn Nets and the Celtics, okay? Nets lead the series 1-0. A lot of predictions that this is going to be a sweep because the Celtics have not been playing up to par long before the postseason. And, of course, we have Jason Tatum carrying the team on his back, Kemba Walker, who's hot and cold here and there, and we, of course, have Jaylen Brown out with that wrist injury. So talk to me about this struggling Celtics team up against the Nets and their, of course, juggernaut offense of Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden.
Yeah, game 1 was interesting. The Celtics jumped out to an early lead, and everybody's like, ooh, they're getting frisky, who knows? And the Nets players all said this after the game. They were nervous isn't the right word, but they kind of had to get adjusted to the environment because this was the first time they were in an arena with fans, and it was, however many fans, 14, 15,000. It was full, and the energy was high, and guys came out super jacked up, and I think they pressed a little bit to start. But once they settled in, the Nets were fine. And, the thing I see, look, as you mentioned, Jason Tatum right now is the only Celtic that they can count on consistently. Kemba Walker has been up and down. Robert Williams is someone who I've been saying on our pod for a while that Celtics should be really playing this guy more. The Time Lord, he had 9 blocks in game 1. I mean, he was active. He was everywhere. He's a great piece for them going forward. But honestly, Jenna, they're overmatched in this matchup, and we predicted it on our series preview last week. I said Nets in 5. I'm not moving off that. I mean, I think the Celtics will probably get a game in Boston, but honestly, if the Nets swept them, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, same here. This one seems like a clean-cut deal to me. I mean, again, the Celtics hopefully can get one game so it's not a complete sweep because, I mean, Boston, they're struggling. They've struggled all season.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this in a nonchalant way because it's not surprising at this point.
Yeah.
It's the same narrative, and then you have the loss of Brown, which just makes it even 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So, because he was having a stellar season, of course.
He was. He was Tatum's running mate, and it'd be interesting to see how they would have matched up against the Nets with a fully healthy squad. Because again, Tatum and Brown, excellent wing defenders. You can put some size on Durant and Harden and Kyrie. But again, and even if they were full strength, I would still pick the Nets in this series just because I think the Nets are just better. And one thing I noted from the Nets side of things, defensively, they looked engaged and active. And that was a really good sight to see because that is this team's Achilles heel, is that, all season long they ranked 25th in defense, which is not good. We know that no team's ever won the title being ranked outside the top 15 in defense. But they look like a team that, when engaged, they can play good enough defense to advance.
And they don't seem worried either whatsoever. And as the days go on that we see them perform so well together, the narrative slowly exits of the team, the big three, not playing together so much and blah, 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 and this and that, and can they make it work? Because it's clearly working. And then I have to just drop a note really quick that their whole roster is back to being active, except for, of course, Spencer Dinwiddie, who is still rehabbing that partial MCL tear. I have to get that right because he calls people out on Twitter, and it's terrifying, okay? I just had to worry about Durant at this point, but now I got to worry about Spencer.
Yeah,
He's calling people out.
This is the healthiest the Nets have been all season, barring the beginning, right? And so, remember, Steve Nash all season kept saying, yeah, we want to win as many games as possible, but we want to prioritize our health going into the playoffs. We want to, because we know if we are healthy and if we're doing the right things, we have a good chance at this thing. But if we're not healthy, we got no chance. And right now, they look like a fully healthy squad.
Love to see it. So game 2, you said, what were you predicting for
Oh,
this one?
yeah. The Nets win tonight. Go up to easy.
Yeah. Yep, that's about it. And that's all she wrote. Let's go down to a matchup that is really grueling. And if we're only going into game 2, and it's super physical, which I love, but still, little hiccup in Chris Paul in their last game where they did take the lead 1-0 over the Lakers, but he had a little tweak with that shoulder, says he's good to go for game 2. We'll see. It does make me weary, but what I'm not weary about is Devin Booker and how hot his hand is. You would never guess that this guy really doesn't have a deep playoff history, and it's amazing. Ayton is stepping up where he needs to. Much improved development, of course, under Chris Paul. Talk to me about this matchup. What stands out to you?
Look, the Phoenix Suns are good. They were the number 2 seed in the West for a reason. They played well all year long. There was something like 17-5 versus the other Western Conference playoff teams this year. I mean, this isn't an accident or happenstance, right? They are the 2 for a reason. They play excellent defense. They've got elite shot creation on the perimeter from Devin Booker and Chris Paul. They have shooting 3 and D from Jay Crowder and Mikal Bridges. And look, DeAndre Ayton gets a lot of flack because he was in the famed Luka Doncic draft, right? He was taken number 1 overall. And we see what Luka Doncic is, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Ayton's good, man, and he's gotten good defensively. And he outplayed Anthony Davis in game 1. And I'm going to tell you this right now, Lakers fans. If the Suns win the DeAndre Ayton, Anthony Davis matchup, y'all going home in round 1. Because LeBron is clearly not at 100%, and you can see it the way he plays. Now, he's so gifted and talented that he can put up 18, 10, and 10 or whatever, and you're like, all right, LeBron's kind of masking his way around that. But this Lakers team cannot repeat with Anthony Davis not being an elite player. And right now, he is not playing like an elite player. And he took the blame after game 2 and said, the loss is on me. I got to play better. So I expect him to come out and play better. But look, injuries are what they are. And this Suns team, there's a saying, right, Jenna? Ignorance is bliss. The young guys may just be too young and too, quote unquote, dumb. I don't mean they're actually dumb. But too, unawed by the about the scenario to get too worried about it. All they know is we're going to play some ball and just see what happens. And of course, Chris Paul being there gives them that confidence. Monty Williams on the sidelines. I just love what Phoenix is doing. And, what stands out for me right now for the Lakers is their 2 biggest players, LeBron and Anthony Davis, are not fully healthy. And again, if they are not playing elite basketball, this is danger time.
It is. It really is. Because like you said, the injuries factor in, which is what we've been most worried about. And again, CP3 tweaking that shoulder, says he's fine, but it looked painful. Exited the game, came back, but I'd like to know what went on in that locker room.
I mean, he couldn't even dribble the ball with his right hand when he came back. I mean, that's how you know he was badly hurt, right? Could not use his right hand at all to dribble, and this is the point guard we're talking about here. Look, it was something, and the LeBron fall and CP3 doing his thing, like getting up under him. That's a classic. That's Chris Paul, right? When you are 6 foot tall at best with shoes on in a land of giants, which is what the NBA is. And to be as good as Chris Paul is, you got to have a little bit of that in you, right? Like that kind of edge. And Chris always gets up against that line, right? That's just who he is. He's a super competitor.
Gotta love it.
But he's incredible. I'm loving what he's doing over there in Phoenix. And, as far as tonight, I don't know where this is going. I mean, I expect the Lakers to come out and play a lot better than they played in game 1. But, look, you wouldn't surprise me if they went down 0-2. And in many ways, Jenna, I'd actually like the Suns to win this and have it go back to LA down 0-2, because then I want to see, okay, this is the first time in a while for the Lakers. Now you're getting some real adversity, down 0-2, and you're going home. What you gonna do?
It's going to be incredible television and incredible entertainment, incredible basketball entertainment to see the Lakers kind of come back from a 2-0 deficit there. So that will be interesting. My prediction for game 2 is I expect the Lakers to take it because the lackluster performances between LeBron James and Anthony Davis in game 1. I mean, Anthony Davis had like 13 points. That can't
Yeah, that ain't it.
You need to be high 20s, LeBron. You need to be dropping like 30 throughout this playoff series. Sorry, it is what it is.
No,
and when I say 30, I mean 30.
You're not wrong, Jenna. Part of the problem with Anthony Davis is somehow he thinks he's some mid-range shooting assassin. He thinks he's Kevin Durant. It's like, bro, no, that ain't you. You can make those shots, but you don't historically shoot at that Kevin Durant level of efficiency in the mid-range and from behind the three-point line. You can make shots there, no doubt, but that isn't the strength of your game. You got to get yourself inside. And look, again, if Ayton's strong, if Ayton's keep pushing him out further and further and making him a bit uncomfortable, that's a win. Loving what I'm seeing out of Phoenix. I'm excited for this game tonight.
I am so excited. I'm going to take the Lakers, though. And you know me, I can't not take the Lakers. Here. Come on now. Absurd. Okay, let's move on. Another LA team here. Sharing that LA spotlight, but not getting it as much because they're not LeBron. Kidding. The Clippers. Let's talk about the Clippers and the Mavs. The Mavs lead the series 1-0. A shocker to some for that first game steal. What stands out to you? What are your takeaways from that matchup?
Well, as you see in the show notes, I put a bullet under this series and I said, Clips gone clip. Is there anything left to say? And it's really unfortunate because, look, internet's here for jokes, and we know jokes greater than facts. The past failings of the Clippers franchise have nothing to do with this current group of Clippers. Now, last year's 3-1 loss to the Nuggets, yes, that's about these guys. But all the stuff that happened in the 70s, 80s, that has nothing to do with this team, right? So I don't believe there's some Clipper curse. However, there's something not all there with this team, and I don't know what it is. And they're going to get a lot of flack because what did they do, Jenna? They purposely tanked the last game of the season to avoid having to play the Lakers in round 1, right? Or see them early. Because you figured, we'll get the Mavs and we could beat the Mavs. Listen, Luka Doncic is at the level now where his brilliance by itself is going to be enough to win the Mavericks 2 games. Okay? That he's getting to that level like how LeBron is, right? Where it's like, all right, LeBron's here. We're going to win just because he's great. We're going to win 2 just off the strength of that. He's at that level now where just off the strength of his greatness, the Mavs are going to win 2 games. Well, what does that mean now? That means you have 5 games left in a 7-game series if the Mavs take 2. So you as the Clippers, you have to win 4 out of 5. That is a tall order now, right? Because then you have to be way better than you've been. And we've seen it. The Clippers have no answer for Luka Doncic. Literally none. They put Patrick Beverley on him. He scored, screamed, "You're too effing small," right? It's just Luka.
It was clear.
Oh yeah. Listen, Luka is that dude. Okay, he is that dude, and you send a double team at him, no problem. I know where the double's coming from. Pass to an open guy for a shot, or get it to a guy in the middle of the floor. Now he's gonna kick, go drive to the rim. He's dissecting. And what's the thing we said about the Clippers, Jenna, when they got Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with already having Pat Beverley there? We were like, ooh, this could be the greatest defensive team in the playoffs. You got the 2 great wing defenders, and you got Patrick Beverley. Okay. At what point, Jenna, do we stop giving these guys credit for their defensive reputation versus what we're actually seeing with our eyes, right?
Yep.
Pat Beverley, I already said, too small. Luka killing you, so you're gone. We need to see Kawhi and Paul George getting up on Luka. Not for the whole game, but they've got to get into his shirt, make him uncomfortable, and disrupt him, and they're not doing that. Now, Easier said than done. Luka also has the kind of game where I don't think you're going to disrupt him. But listen, you've got to make things tough. We know this, Jenna. You're not going to stop any superstar in this league. You're just not. Luka, LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, none of these dudes, you ain't stopping them. What you want to do is make it difficult for them to do what they do. Make them inefficient, right? Turn them over. Because they're going to get their points and their rebounds and their assists because they're too good not to. But you want to make it difficult on them. It was too easy in game one for Luka. Too easy. And if they continue with that
way.
Oh, yeah. If they continue with that, listen, man, Clips gonna clip, and it's going to be some interesting times in LA in the offseason.
Extremely interesting times. Sometimes I just don't get it with these Clippers. Funny with them tanking that game so they didn't have to come face to face with the Lakers. Ty Lue didn't want none of that bronze smoke, as you would put. He ain't want none of that. Come on, he already knows what's up. He's like, I've been there, guys. We don't want this.
Well,
we ain't doing this.
It's so interesting, right? So everybody said, all right, with Doc Rivers gone, maybe you'll get Ty Lue and they'll be better or whatever. The Clippers' problems look the same to me as they did when Doc was there, right? So I think this crew, for whatever reason, something is missing there. I don't know what, but there's some. We talked about numbers and what I like from an analytical perspective, and I said about Devin Booker. What I love about Devin Booker is he steps into the arena and he believes he's the best player. He doesn't care who's there, and you can't measure that. That's just a thing that you have. There's something, and I don't know what it is, but the Clippers are missing it. All right, yeah. And they need to find it quick because they have the capability to be very good and shouldn't. I mean, this is a NBA Finals contender, but the way they played in Game 1, nah.
I'm hoping that we're going to see a big turnaround coming up in Game 2. We shall see.
Yeah,
if not,
because this should be a good series. This really should be a 6-7 game series. So I want to see the Clippers, really step it up.
Seriously, though, let's go, Clips. Come on now. Everybody needs some much improvement up there in LA now. You guys need to figure that shit out. Must be the air up in there, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how that's going. All right, let's go back to the East because we got to talk about the Wizards and Sixers matchup. Sixers took the first game, much to everybody's prediction, but don't underestimate the Wizards. Bradley Beal, Russell Westbrook, I mean, they still played with them well. And let's talk about the star of the game on the Sixers side, Tobias Harris, who had 28 points in the second quarter alone.
He was excellent. Listen, shouts to Doc Rivers, the Tobias Harris whisperer, right? Like Tobias's best play has always come under Doc Rivers as his head coach, and he is playing like an all-star level player. He's doing his thing. Look, the Sixers are incredible on defense. I really love this team. They're another team. Again, they could see them in the finals. Another contender. They have the pieces you need. We know about Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Matisse Thybulle, Seth Curry, and Tobias Harris, man. And if he can create shots on the wing and the perimeter, that is such a huge piece because in the playoffs, that is so necessary. The most valuable skill that you need in the postseason is the ability to create your own shot and create for others, right? That the value. I mean, teams that win tend to have guys who can do that in droves. And my worry about the Sixers were who's going to do that consistently. And if Tobias Harris can be that guy, that is huge. From the Wizards side of things, look, you got Beal, you got Westbrook, and that means you have a chance because those guys they're superstars, so you're never going to stop them. But if they're inefficient, you got a chance. The Wizards need to do some different things on defense. I'd maybe start Davis Bertans. That way you have a little more spacing on the floor so that when Russ drives, he doesn't have a whole lot of clutter in the lane attacking that rim. Because if they're doing that and Bradley's hitting from the outside and Bertans is hitting shots, I mean, they could potentially steal a game. But honestly, real talk, Jenna, sweep or gentleman sweep, as I predicted. The Sixers are just too good defensively. And there's really no answer for Joel Embiid.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's an extremely uneven matchup. I mean, as great as the Wizards are, it's just they're not in the same playing field right now. And that's okay. I mean, the Wizards had great success this season, but I'd be very surprised if the Sixers didn't get past the Wizards. I can't even say it without laughing. Oh, my God. No offense, guys.
I mean, all the offense. It's fine.
this shade. Okay, no.
Prepare
Let's
yourself.
Let's talk about my New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. All right. I sincerely, with all my heart, was about to put a lot of money on the Knicks taking that first game. And then Trae Young has to go and sink a floater with like 0.9 seconds left to bring them up. I think it was the final score was 107-105. So leading to that, of course, Atlanta takes game one. However, it was close. Julius Randle struggled, though, really hard, and we can't have that going forward.
Correct.
He is the focal point, the nucleus of this squad. So he struggled, but again, the point, in my opinion, is shutting down Trae Young. Do you shut down Trae Young? He silenced the Garden at the end, said it's effing quiet in here now because he got FU chance. He's officially the Garden's newest villain. It's amazing. The narratives are flying. It's great. The crowd was rocking, 15,000 strong. I mean, that place, people inside the Garden said that the roof was just like shaking. Their seats were shaking. I mean, what are your takeaways, Jarod? Because I am just over here
I do want
crying up
to.
my tears from Sunday.
I want to say, in terms of crowds, the New York Knicks crowd was the best playoff crowd that we've seen over the beginning of these playoffs. They were electric. 15,000 sounded like 20,000 or more. I mean, they were rocking. And kudos to Knicks fans again. First time you've seen playoff basketball in 8 seasons plus. That's wonderful. You know, and I will say this. You know, the idea of, is the NBA better if the Knicks are good? I think that's a lot more complicated than people think. I don't know if, because again, outside of New York, I don't think anybody cares about the Knicks. Like, I just don't. Like, now in New York, do people care about them? Obviously. But the NBA fan in Chicago, do they care about the Knicks? No, right? So there's that. But I will say this: the Knicks, when they are good, have the best crowd and the best support of any team in the NBA. And that's just over my years of watching the NBA since the mid '80s. Right? That crowd is just insane and super electric. So kudos to them. I thought it was great. And they were allowed to the FU Trae Young chants, all that. I'm gonna start with Trae Young. Look, we talked about that article that Jackie Mack wrote about him earlier this season, and Trae, he's your classic little guy who's got a Napoleon complex, right? And no, he does, and it's fine, because
I agree.
That's the fuel he uses to push him forward, right? Whatever, and he said it numerous times, he's been slighted and doubted his entire basketball career. From his parents not wanting to pay money for him to enter an AAU tournament because they were like, look, the good kids get paid to go. We have to pay for you, look, whatever. From his AAU coaches to the crowds in college to this dude, again, I'm talking about Devin Booker. When he steps on the floor, he thinks he's the best player. Trae Young is in that same mold. So crowd yelling FU at him, that isn't scaring him. That's actually emboldening him, making him be like, oh, word? Y'all think I'm not good? Cool. I'm going to show you how good I am.
He said that he got that a lot in college, too. So he's used to this
100%.
ridicule and this,
and that's his fuel,
critics.
Jenna. That's his fuel. That's what gets him going, right? The great ones, we talk about Jordan inventing slights and making things up that people said about him when nobody said it, right? LeBron, same thing. Nobody called you a wash king, dude. Nobody said that, but you made that up. Whatever it is you need to give you that extra, and listen, Trae was masterful down the stretch, running out of the pick and roll, and he read the game so well. He knew everything the Knicks were doing. Oh, cool. You're coming up to blitz, pass to the open guy. Now you got a 4-on-3 behind you. Oh, you're going to sag off? I got the floater in the lane. I mean, he for a young player, again, this is his first playoff experience in that hostile environment.
In the Garden.
No problems. I'm good. And you made the point, Jenna, and I love it. He's going to be this generation of Knicks fans, Reggie Miller, Michael Jordan, whatever. The dude's going to come in and just rip your hearts out. And he shushed the Garden crowd after game one. He silenced them. I mean, it was crazy how it went from recklessly loud to when he hit that shot, it went dead silent. I was like, that is. And as a road player, they all tell you this. What do you like? Playing on the road, playing at home? All the great ones tell you, nothing is more satisfying than silencing the road crowd. And they love doing it. And you can tell, Trae felt it. Now, Does this mean he's going to kill the Knicks every game? No. I think it'll be a good series. Julius Randle will play better. He's got to shoot better for sure. Be a little bit more patient. I think he rushed a bit in that game. Alec Burks was incredible for the Knicks. Can they count on that every game? I don't know. RJ Barrett's going to be a little bit better shooting the ball from three. But I think these teams are evenly matched, and Tom Thibodeau will come out and make some adjustments. They're not going to let, Trae come off the pick and roll and just, be out there chilling like he was doing towards the end of that game. They're going to make some adjustments, and, I'd look to see Derrick Rose play a lot more than Alfred Payton did, just because, Alfred Payton, not real good. So I just think that, there'll be adjustments made, and again, also kudos to the Hawks role players. Bogdanovich, not even role players. I mean, there's other elevated players. Bogdanovich, Lou Williams, at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, he was excellent for them when they needed to steady the ship a little bit. Kevin Huerter off the bench, my guy. Clint Capella. The Hawks are good, man, and these teams are pretty evenly matched. I think this is a 6 or 7 game series, as I predicted in our show last week.
I agree. I think 6 or 7, and I also agree when you say it's an even matchup. I mean, of course, it's hard to think of that when you just think of the power that Trae Young has. But, and again, just a last note on him, I'm always a fan of Trae Young.
You are.
Through and through.
More so than me. And I admit it, I thought he was going to be a high bust potential. But as I've said before, I was wrong. No,
you've done your due diligence giving him his flowers. I'm done busting you about that, but I'm glad you brought it up. But honestly, if you really, and again, you know me, I love a good narrative. If you just take a step back, this guy is already predicted as an underdog no matter what. He's little, he's this, he's that. And then you go into the Garden where LeBron James, Zion Williamson, a ton of guys say that is their favorite place. And everybody knows that's not a diss to their franchises, but when you play in the Garden, it's different. And you play it after a pandemic with 15,000 fans, the most in the NBA right now, and they are Knicks fans. It's not like you're playing in OKC or something, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, just basketball skills aside, the mentality that takes and the maturity for you to go out there and, we're professionals as well in our careers, but that is scary. That is terrifying. And basketball skills aside, to get your mentals ready as opposed to anything else is just, I commend him. Again, that was a game 1 performance. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to go the stretch, but kudos all the way to him. I mean, that was a great performance. Again, we need to see more out of Julius Randle, like we've seen the whole season.
Yep, absolutely.
That is that. Now, before I have a heart attack talking about them more, we gotta go down to the Grizzlies and the Jazz, the number 1 seeded Jazz in the West, but they didn't look like that when the Grizzlies stole game 1. All right, Ja Morant is just incredible. He is Ja Morant. Love when he just puts a little half pony up in the pregame, gets ready, gets his game face on. They were without Donovan Mitchell, though, who was in some type of drama this week with the Jazz, saying that he was first fully ready and he was going to be there, and then the Jazz at the last minute pulled him for continued work on the ankle that he's been out with, the sprained right ankle since mid-April. And then he admitted that he was visibly frustrated. So there is some rumblings inside that locker room right now. I don't know how serious, but hey, it's the playoffs, baby. You don't need that.
Yeah, so there's some challenges going on right now in Utah. Minor ones, I think. Look,
Right.
when it comes to injury, this happens a lot, right? Star players often have their own medical and performance staff that they employ, and they work in concert with the team's medical and performance staff. And that seems to be what the situation is here. From all the stuff I've read, and I've talked to people inside Utah, the Jazz organization, and what Sam Amick and The Athletic have reported, Donovan's team cleared him to play for game 1. The Utah Jazz staff did not. And so that is where the conflict occurred. And I talk about this all the time with injuries. It isn't just about recovering from the initial injury, right? So Donovan Mitchell had the ankle sprain, and they wanted to make sure he came back and he was fully ready to go. What you want to make sure is not only is that injury healed, but the strength in the subsequent areas around that injury have not suffered while you were injured. Now, they're going to, because you had to rest and do all the different things. So you want to build back up that strength so that it's back at pre-injury level. That takes time, right? And I think a lot of times for the players, that's where the push-pull comes back, right? They're like, no, my ankle's fine, I'm ready to go. Okay, your ankle may be fine, but how's the rest of that leg doing? And we know, Jenna, the biggest predictor of injury is previous injury, right? I mean, that's just how it goes. If you've already been hurt, the likelihood of you being hurt again is more likely. And the Jazz figured, okay, we don't play again. They played game 1 on Sunday. We don't play again till Wednesday or Thursday. All right, let's give you an extra day to recover, because they figured they were good enough to beat the Grizzlies without Donovan Mitchell. And to be clear, they are. They had a 17-point lead at one point, right? Yeah. And they lost it all. They're good. They should have been fine in game 1. But they were a little bit disconnected down the stretch defensively. They got a little loose, and the Jazz have killed teams from 3 all season long. They were atrocious from 3 in game 1, 25%, right? And so, all that being said, it was still a one-possession game, right? And so, I'm not going to blame game 1 loss on Donovan being out. That isn't the issue. No. If the Jazz had played up to their capabilities, they'd be up 1-0. But kudos and shouts to my Grizzly Cubs, man. Ja Morant, Dylan Brooks had a hell of a game. Valanciunas is excellent. You know, my guy Triple J, they're still working him back, and you can tell because they basically played without him all season. So they're used to playing a certain type of way, and they just got him back literally at the end of the regular season, and not enough time for him to gel, and you can see because he's just looking lost out there at times and not flowing and a part of the offense. But you know, kudos to the Grizzlies. They're not afraid. They are ready to look. They have that attitude and that moxie. I've talked about this all the time. Those guys believe, they respect their opponents, but they don't fear anybody. They're like, y'all may beat us, but you're not going to beat us because we're afraid of you. We're going to come in and we're going to compete and do our thing. Kudos to the Grizzlies and head coach Taylor Jenkins.
Heck yeah. They are also, don't quote me on the statistic, but they are the youngest team in the NBA, not the youngest.
I believe they are.
Right?
Yep, I believe they are.
So, I mean, hey, and that leadership in Ja Morant, I mean, where he doesn't have experience leading in the NBA is pretty solid, pretty great. I mean, to get one game from the Jazz alone, I'll take it. We'll see how this one goes.
I mean, think about that, Jenna. We've talked about Ja Morant, Trae Young, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. These are all playoff neophytes. Like, these dudes, this is their first playoffs. All these dudes. And for them to be showing out the way they're doing, again, it's early, it's game 1. Let's not lose our minds, but to not be overawed on the big stage. Now, when the series gets tighter and it's a do or die, go home, and we'll see how they adjust. Because, game 1, okay. And the team goes, okay, Ja, we know what you're going to do here. Let's try to stop this and that. How do you then respond? So it'll be interesting to see how all these young guys respond to game 2s after their big game 1 wins.
I know, love it. Go back, watch that film, correct what you don't see and things like that. And it's funny. I'm sure a lot of these young guys are watching film after game 1 and being like, whoa, the pace.
Oh, yeah. And the intensity and physicality of the playoffs, it's just, it's nothing like the regular season. It's just so different. And it just, it ratchets up the deeper and the longer the series and the run goes.
Oh, and really quick, last time, I can't believe I didn't mention this. Our girl, KJ, Kendall Jenner, was at that Suns-Lakers game the other night. Yeah, you know what's up.
Giving her man a little good juju, huh?
Right? And I wonder if she was there with her BFF, Winnie Harlow, who is dating Kyle Kuzma.
Oh, that would have been a little awkward, right? So, like, awkward,
right? Yeah, you know, I got my scope on that. I'm watching that up in these streets. I don't know if Booker was she threw a tequila party for her new 818. I think he might have been there. I'm not sure. Odell Beckham Jr. was there, though. Justin Bieber. I heard LeBron James, maybe, but that's a rumor, so don't be running around with that kid. But anyway, back to the business, because, I'll get some more info on that for the next episode.
I like it.
Let's look ahead to our game 3s coming up here, because it's looking like a sweep for the Bucks in their rematch with the Miami Heat, who don't look like the Eastern Conference champions that they were coming off of last season in the bubble. So this is an interesting one. What's going on with the 305?
Yeah, it's not looking good, Jenna. And it's interesting, the teams that advanced deep into the bubble last year, the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Heat, and the Celtics, those teams are struggling, right? Like they are struggling. And again, we talk about the short off season they had, and those teams, except for the Denver Nuggets, really had rough years injury wise. Although now the Nuggets are without Jamal Murray, as we know, they bounce back and they're 1-1, and we'll talk about them in a minute. I think that's having a cumulative effect on them, right? And so for the Heat, the bubble was the perfect environment for that kind of team. I'm not going to say they're bubble frauds, right? It's like, okay, they're only good in the bubble, they're not good now. It isn't that. It's just that the way in which the bubble was set up, it was in Orlando. They didn't have to travel far from Miami to relocate like everybody else did. It was a little bit easier for them in terms of that. And the way that Jimmy is and that sort of like singular focus, I think it was perfect for that team and for what Spo's doing and for the Heat organization. But this year they were bereft by injuries. Tyler Hero, a little bit of a step backwards in his development, and we know progression and development isn't linear, right? Sometimes you have a down period, then an up. That's just how it goes. Bam Adebayo is not playing great, and there could be fatigue. I mean, he was one of the only Heat players this year that played the majority of their games, so he could be getting gas. Because we talked about again, they played in the finals, so he had a short off season. Jimmy Butler doesn't look great, and the Bucks are good, man. Like, they were incredible from 3 last night, just blitzing the Heat from the opening tip, and they're a better team. The Bucks are just better. Now, what can Coach Spoelstra design up and do differently to sort of take the Bucks out of things? I don't know. Look, Drew Holiday, he is just an upgrade over Eric Bledsoe in every single possible way. He is considerably better, and that matters because if the ball's in his hand late in shot clock situations, something good's going to happen more oftentimes than not. With Bledsoe, I mean, you're almost not guarding that dude, but you have to be aware of Drew at all times. And of course, defensively, we know what he does. He's such a pest. Giannis played well last night. Middleton's, shooting lights out. And Bryn Forbes off the bench. My God, I mean, he's another one killing the Heat from 3. And Miami, conversely, was not good from 3 in Game 2. So look, they're going to go back home. They're down 0-2. Right now, the Bucks are in the driver's seat. And this series could be over really quickly. And it'll be interesting because this is, I believe, when the playoffs will begin for Milwaukee. They get by the Heat. They'll likely have the Nets in the semifinals in the next round. And that's going to be where it's like, okay, for both teams, Brooklyn and Milwaukee, this is when it's going to start amping up and we're going to see, okay, who's really ready for this?
Oh, yeah, that's a different level. Interesting with Bam, too, because he was just trying to make a case for himself for DPOY, which was interesting at some point there.
I mean, look, Bam's a really good defender. This series ain't helping him out on that end. But, actually his defense hasn't been bad. Like, it's more his offense is what I'm concerned about right now. The Bucks are just not guarding him. They're like, we're not worried about him.
Yeah.
He's not making shots. We're not, and that is a problem. That's something that if they don't want to get swept, he's going to have to figure that out real quick in time for Game 3.
Big facts. We'll see how Miami handles going back home. Maybe that home court advantage will give them that extra boost that they need to at least grab one game.
They'll need it. They will need it.
Heck yes. I don't know if they're not drinking the big face coffee anymore. What is not keeping them? What's not keeping them up to par here in these streets? But let's move on here to the Nuggets and Blazers series because it's teed up 1-1, which is interesting. And we're coming off a crazy game from Damian Lillard, who was knocking down threes like usual, just sinking them. 42 points in 42 minutes, but it wasn't enough to land the win because the Nuggets took it 128-109. Big gap there, high-scoring game. What's your takeaway from these first 2 games?
Jokic and Lillard are as advertised, right? I mean, these are 2 of the best guys in the league, and it's incredible. I mean, this series is getting chippy. I don't know if people remember. These 2 teams played each other in an epic 7-game series 2 years ago. And, the Blazers ended up winning that one. And I just love what I'm seeing. Dame went off in the first half. And then the reports were that, Michael Malone, who, by the way, did you see that whole not dust up, but that thing with Cassidy Hubbard, where he was like, she said, Mike, and he's like, no, my name's Michael. I was like, oh, all right, dude.
Yeah. And then she was funny. She's the homie, but she tweeted something like note to self, like, don't call him Mike. I
was like, are you really gonna wow out because she called you Mike? All right, whatever.
Right.
Anyway,
Like, it's the playoffs. How many conversations has she had with you before this?
I mean, yeah. Anyway, so Malone had said, all right, we're going to do something different in the second half. Aaron Gordon said, nah, I got him. And they put Aaron Gordon on Dame, and Dame did not have a great second half, right? Only had about 10 or 11 points, I believe. Only made one more three in the second half of that game. And, Dame will say, look, it's more than just about Aaron Gordon. Schemes were different, all that different sort of thing, yada, yada, yada. The challenge there for the Nuggets is if you have Aaron Gordon on Damian Lillard more, that's going to free up CJ and Norm Powell to attack from the wing area and get to the paint, because now you're small in the paint, and that's going to be a challenge for Denver. So they're going to have to mix up their coverages on Dame, but I'm loving what I'm seeing. These games are chippy. Guys are like already, it's only been 2 games. These guys are already bumping and like getting at each other. That's the thing about the playoffs, Jenna, that I love. As the series goes on, these teams just get annoyed with each other, right? They're sick of seeing the same guys across from them. Mm-hmm. Every time you walk by someone, like you bump them with your shoulder, and it just gets testier and testier, mm-hmm. and we really see the physicality and everything and the competitiveness come out. From the Denver side, Michael Porter Jr., a little bit better in Game 2 than he was in Game 1, but he's going to have to play a lot better for Denver to advance. I'm looking for him to be a 25-plus point per game scorer in this series. He's really got to show out from what he's been doing all year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think, like you said, these matchups are getting chippy. They are physical. These Game 1s were physical between a bunch of different teams. So I'm loving that. Real quick, what about on the Nuggets side? What about your guy, MPJ?
Well, like I said, yeah, he needs to play better, right? I want to see him be a 25-plus, 30-point per game scorer. Like, he's got the tools. He's got to be Jokic's his Robin. He's got to be the sidekick. Jokic is doing his thing. You got to compliment him, my guy. There's no Jamal Murray. We know that. And look, Denver's struggling not having PJ Dozier, Barton. They need size on the wing. Because look, that Campazzo, Austin Rivers starting backcourt, I don't want to see too many minutes of that. Like, that is not advisable, right? As it relates to the playoffs, particularly when you got to go against Dame and CJ. So, I am looking for the Nuggets to and Michael Porter Jr. in particular to really step his game up, be that number 2 that I think he can be. And then if they get Dozier back at some point, they'll need his defensive intensity just to break up those Campazzo, Austin Rivers minutes, because they're getting torched on the other end.
I hear you on that. I mean, this will be an interesting one because Portland's fun because they live in the underdog seat. They just do. And not that they are the essential underdogs of this series, but if they go down a game, this is where they live. Literally. Well, yeah. James got the watch. He's all out there happening and shit.
And their 2 biggest guys, right? Their 2 best guys, I should say, Dame and CJ, are small, right? So there's that whole like small guy versus big guy thing, right? That whole David versus Goliath idea. But yeah, listen, this is a hell of a series. Again, I think I picked Nuggets in 6, so they're gonna have to kind of do some work out there in Portland for Game 3.
So excited! Like, are you feeling the playoff jitters like I am?
It's, when you watching these games, and, shouts to these West Coast games that start at like 10:40 at night Eastern time. Oh. I know, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, why am I still up watching basketball?
I can't do this. Like, it's close. Then I fall asleep. I wake up at like 4 a.m. and they're replaying it, and I'm like, where am I? Did I just wake up in the same day? Literally.
But you feel it though, man, because what happens in the playoffs, Jenna, and we talk about all the time, every possession matters, right? And when you waste a possession, you're like, it's like it right? That's it, because you're only going to get so many, right? And a turnover, a bad shot, or whatever, like it's a wasted possession, and it magnifies itself, right? Because now we're down 0-2, now we're down 2-1, whatever it is, and our backs are against the wall, because you don't want to ever get into the down 3-1 or those kinds of position, or down 2-0, right? You feel the pressure starts mounting on you, because the avalanche comes, right? So it's exciting, man. My favorite time of the year. Love NBA playoffs.
Love it. And like we always say, there's no room for error or no margin for error in these games.
It's thin, man. It's thin.
Yeah. It's very thin, and you really have to be 100% every single night, if not that, especially if you have injuries or you're carrying a team because of injury.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. It's super unpredictable right now. So we shall see, guys. You know, we're sticking with you every step of the way in these playoffs, and we're just as excited as you are. So keep following us, stick with us, and I have extra tissues if you need for anything.
As always, guys, you know where to find us. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. We are at 7footers Pod on Twitter, at 7footers Podcast on Instagram, at JS Hector, at Jenna Lemoncelli. And we'll see you guys next week. Keep enjoying the playoffs. Peace.
Peace.
Spent a couple years out here with these raps, trying to have a plan that we made come true. Applied to some jobs, but I ain't hit back. I don't wanna trap, what's a man gon' do? Chevy told me come